My wife is doing everything she can to save her marriage that she destroyed by cheating on me. She cheated on me and had a child with her lover. Your Honor, my client does not wish to get divorced and is asking the court to mandate counseling. She believes the marriage is strong enough to overcome this issue with a little help. That was her lawyer speaking, her being Julie, my soon-to-be ex-wife. If I had any say in it, my lawyer stood up. Your Honor, a year-long affair with multiple men resulting in the birth of a child is hardly just an issue, especially when DNA tests confirm the child is not my client's. We see no point in prolonging this farce of a marriage. Any further counseling won't change anything. It is precisely because of the child that I am inclined to order counseling. The judge responded, a child needs a stable home to grow up in. If you think I'm going to raise that cheating woman's child, I interrupted loudly. My lawyer cringed as the judge slammed his gavel. One more word, and I will hold you in contempt of court. He shouted at me. I am ordering 1 month of counseling with 2 sessions per week. You will attend Mr. Stedman or face consequences. He glared at me briefly, then hit the gavel again. That's all. Julie, my soon-to-be ex-wife, had a smug look on her face as I walked into the counselor's office. I'm Dr. Sullivan, but you can call me Gerald. May I call you Brian? He smiled at me. No, you may not. You will address me as Mr. Stedman. I replied. Brian, there's no need. Julie began. And you don't speak to me at all. I snapped at her. I think we need to calm down. Dr. Sullivan said, please, Mr. Stedman, take a seat. He gestured toward one of the 2 chairs placed side by side in front of his desk. I dragged my chair a good 6 feet away from Julie and sat down. Gerald let out a sigh. All right then, he started. I didn't catch the rest because I took out my AirPods and started listening to music on my phone. Gerald just stared at me for a moment before turning to talk to Julie. I couldn't hear what he was saying, so I kept scrolling through my phone listening to my music. After about 15 minutes, I noticed Julie stand up. She gave me a hard glare and stormed out of the office. I took out my AirPods. All right, doctor, great session. See you on Thursday. I'm canceling the sessions and sending my report to the judge. Even better. And with that, I left the office. The judge was clearly displeased. Give me one reason why I shouldn't hold your client in contempt, he demanded, glaring at my lawyer. Your Honor, you ordered my client to attend the sessions, and he complied by attending the first one as per the order. It was the counselor who canceled the remaining sessions, my lawyer argued. The counselor's report clearly states that your client made no effort to participate in the session. He put on headphones and ignored them the entire time. The judge shot back. The order required his attendance. My lawyer responded. He attended. Since the counselor concluded that further sessions would be ineffective, I request that you grant the divorce as per the petition. Absolutely not, the judge replied. I am ordering 4 more weeks of counseling. Mr. Stedman will attend, and he will engage in the sessions. The office was arranged exactly the same way as before when I arrived, 2 chairs about a foot apart, facing the doctor's desk. He sat behind it. The desk was bare except for a yellow legal pad and a photo of a woman probably in her mid-30s, along with a child who looked about 6 years old. Mr. Stedman, the doctor said, please have a seat. Once again, I started to move the chair. Julie reached out to stop me, and I recoiled. I'm letting you both know that any physical contact will be considered an attack and met with appropriate force, I said. Julie gasped, pulling back. I resumed moving the chair and then sat down. Once again, I took out my phone. Mr. Stedman, the judge ordered you to participate in this session, the doctor reminded me. I'm aware, I said. I'm using my phone to record the session to prove my participation. My lawyer informed me that some counselors can have their own agendas. Since my soon-to-be ex-wife has been seeing you for some time, I believe you may have already formed a relationship with her that could be biased against me. And what if I don't want you to record the session? The doctor asked. Then I'll go back to court and request a different counselor, I replied. I have that option. The only reason I haven't done it yet is that it would cause even more delays. Julie, how do you feel about the session being recorded? The doctor asked her. Whatever, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Can we just get started? All right, the doctor said. Well, I'd like to begin. Before we start, may I ask a question? I interrupted. Of course, he replied. You can ask questions at any time. I might ask you to hold off during certain parts of the process. The silence in the room was almost suffocating, and I felt every second weigh on me like an unbearable burden. Dr. Sullivan looked at me with a tired expression, as if he knew all of this was a waste of time. Julie, on the other hand, wore that triumphant look, as if she believed she was winning something, that in the end, I would be forced to give in and stay with her. She didn't understand. She never understood. All I wanted was to see this end. I watched as Dr. Sullivan adjusted his notepad on the desk, beginning what he considered a last attempt at dialogue. He started with the typical therapist speech, talking about how important it was to set aside past grievances and focus on the future, about how relationships are built on a foundation of trust and mutual effort. I barely listened. My mind wandered to all the lies, the betrayals, and worse still, the contempt. She had the audacity to cheat on me, to lie to me for an entire year. And yet here she was, sitting as if the problem was mine, as if my refusal to forgive her was some kind of personal affront. Then, Dr. Sullivan addressed me directly, asking how I felt about all this. For a second, I considered pouring out all the rage and pain that had been accumulating, but what good would it do? They would never understand. Julie only leaned forward, with that fake sympathetic look, as if she genuinely cared about what I was going to say. Honestly, I began, feeling my face flush with the intensity of my emotions. I feel betrayed, ridiculed, like someone who was played for a fool, while my own wife led a double life. And now, we're here, pretending there's something left to save, when the truth is, everything was destroyed. Julie opened her mouth, probably to defend herself, but Dr. Sullivan cut her off, asking me to continue. It was rare for him to let me speak without her interrupting, so I took the opportunity. The truth, Dr. Sullivan, is that there is no marriage left to save. I looked directly at Julie, letting each word sink in. She destroyed everything when she decided that I wasn't enough, that the love and trust one gave her weren't enough. And now, after humiliating me, she has the nerve to sit here and say she wants to save the marriage. For what? So I can live beside her, reminded every day of the child she had with another man. The tension in the room intensified, and Dr. Sullivan tried to smooth things over. He began talking about forgiveness and how, sometimes, it takes an act of true love to rebuild a relationship. That was enough to make me laugh. True love? Did she even know what that meant? With all due respect, doctor, I interrupted. True love is what I had for this woman. It's what kept me faithful to her, what made me overlook every little flaw and devote myself to our marriage. But this is betrayal. It's an offense to what a marriage should be. Julie began crying, her low sobs filling the room, but I felt no compassion. She could shed as many tears as she wanted, but nothing would erase what she had done. After a few seconds, she pulled herself together and, with a trembling voice, started to speak. I made a mistake, Brian, a terrible mistake, but that doesn't erase everything we've been through together, the life we built. We have a history, a life worth fighting for. The cynicism in her words almost made me get up and leave the room. Worth fighting for? Did she really believe that? I took a deep breath, trying to control the urge to yell. When I finally managed to speak, my voice came out cold and distant. You had an entire year to think about that, Julie. And still, every time you lied to me, every time you met with him, you chose to continue. It was a choice, not a mistake. And now, you want me to forget, to pretend it didn't happen? Sorry, but the love I had for you died the moment I learned the truth. Dr. Sullivan tried, unsuccessfully, to calm things down. He insisted that we should focus on a solution to the situation, something that would allow us to move forward without resentment. But how could I let go of resentment when the person who should have been my partner was the first to stab me in the back? Finally, he suggested we take a moment in silence to reflect. Julie started crying harder, and I ignored her. I knew those tears were just well-rehearsed theater. After a few minutes, Dr. Sullivan ended the session and asked us to return next week, more willing to resolve things. We left the room in silence, but before I could leave the building, Julie called out to me. Brian, please. I know you hate me now, but I swear I can make this right. Just give me a chance. I looked at her and saw, maybe for the first time, someone completely different from the woman I had loved. Someone who only now, after losing everything, seemed to realize the value of what we had. And all I could feel was an overwhelming indifference. It's not hate, Julie, I said calmly. I just don't care anymore. She pulled back, and I walked out, feeling an odd sense of freedom. For months, I'd been trapped in this nightmare of a marriage, but finally, it felt like I was ready to move on. That night, I lay in bed in the small apartment I rented after leaving our home, feeling the emptiness around me like a heavy presence. And at the same time, there was a bitter sense of purpose. After all the humiliation, the betrayals, and those sham therapy sessions, I realized the situation might never end the way I expected. Julie, always manipulative, always pretending, would never truly leave me in peace. She'd fight to the bitter end to keep up the appearance of a remorseful, devoted wife. She wanted this marriage, but not out of love, only for the convenience it offered her. And that realization burned inside me like an unquenchable flame. I didn't want to step into another courtroom, didn't want to hear another judge talk about reconciliation, about giving the child a stable home. That child wasn't my responsibility. My own lawyer had already warned me. Julie was prepared to turn our separation into a legal battleground, accusing me of abandoning the family. She'd use every trick she could, and it made me realize she didn't want resolution. She only wanted control. But if she thought she could keep manipulating me, she was dead wrong. The first thing I did was dig into everything I could find about Julie. I knew she had secrets, probably more dirt than I imagined. I started searching where I'd never dared before. Her social media, her emails, old messages where she might have let something slip. I hired a private investigator, willing to spend whatever it took to uncover anything she might be hiding. And as I suspected, it didn't take long for something to show up. The investigator returned with photos, messages, and bank records showing that Julie was involved with more than just her official lover. She had a network of encounters and was spending massive amounts of money on gifts and trips for these men. I discovered she had opened a joint account with one of them, transferring a significant chunk of our savings, probably thinking I'd never find out. Armed with all this, I went to my lawyer. He was surprised by what I had, but also cautious, reminding me that the court could dismiss infidelity as irrelevant, or even prevent me from using this evidence, claiming it was an invasion of privacy. But I wasn't concerned. This wasn't just a game to me, it was a reckoning. So, I had him file everything as evidence while I planned the next steps. In the days that followed, I kept calm and avoided direct contact with Julie. I pretended to be defeated, sent polite messages, and kept a resigned tone in the few conversations we had. I knew she thought she was in control, that I'd eventually give in and continue those counseling sessions. She even had the nerve to call me mature and reasonable for accepting help. It made me sick, but I knew I had to keep up the act until the right moment. Then, on the day of the final hearing, I was ready. In court, I sat in silence while Julie and her lawyer presented a manipulated report, suggesting that I was resistant to the healing of the relationship and that it was crucial for the court to intervene for the family's welfare. And as they spoke, I could barely hide a smile. I knew that in a few minutes, it would all turn against her. When my lawyer stood up, he didn't waste time. He presented all the evidence I'd gathered. The bank transfers, the photos with other men, and even explicit messages exchanged between her and her lovers. The judge was silent, clearly taken aback by the turn of events. Julie, beside me, went pale, her eyes widening, and her lawyer frantically searched for some defense. But there was no excuse. The repentant wife act crumbled with each piece of evidence presented. My lawyer ended firmly, arguing that this wasn't just a case of infidelity, but a violation of our marriage contract. Julie had diverted money and used marital assets to finance a double life. The judge finally spoke, saying there was no basis for reconciliation. He ordered our divorce to be finalized immediately, and that Julie had to repay the money taken from our account. Additionally, she was legally barred from seeking any further financial benefit from me in the future. Julie stared at me in despair, maybe hoping I'd have some shred of mercy. But all I felt was a cold satisfaction, a sense of justice served. I stood up and walked out of the courtroom, head held high, leaving her behind, alone and desperate. She was finally reaping the consequences of her choices. In the months that followed, my life started to fall back into place. I recovered most of the money and finalized the process to secure a complete separation, leaving no room for Julie to contest anything. Meanwhile, I heard she'd been evicted from her apartment with no means to cover her expenses without access to our shared assets. As for her lovers, they all vanished once they realized she had nothing left to offer. Eventually, I heard through the grapevine that Julie was living with distant relatives, facing serious financial troubles. She tried reaching out a few times, sending long, pleading messages saying she regretted everything and that we could still start over. I just blocked each attempt, not wasting another second on her. There was no anger, no resentment left, just the certainty that this was the deserved end. And finally, I was free. Free from the pain, from the humiliation, free to rebuild my life and leave the past where it belonged.